Agreed. Okay, we're recording now for sure. Whew, that was arduous. We are doing the first Get Hired series class. It's just Get Hired Microsoft Word. All I'm doing is showing people a few little places on Word to start their resume, edit their resume, just a few tips and pointers. I'm sure a lot of people are going to have to start from scratch. They might have an old resume ready to go, but I don't know what people's computer access is going to be like if they don't have one at home. So just a few Microsoft Word tips. So if you want to create a resume using a template in Microsoft Word, which is easy and difficult at the same time, you just open Word, and the first thing you'll see is a new button to create a new document. And when you click on that, you see this. There's an array of templates, and then you can search templates. And usually you can just type in resume and wait. Gotta wait. There's a little more templates button at the side. I'm going to click on that because it's not searching. Not sure why. There we go. It will give you every resume known to man. And most of the time, people are using or have been using chronological. That's kind of been the standard. But they have resume templates for specialized careers. They've got basic resumes that are just very plain, no color, no nothing. Chronological resumes, photo resumes. You could pick anything you want, but again, the standard resume over the past several years, at least 10 to 15, has been the chronological resume. And there's a million different choices of that as well. I think I had clicked on modern chronological when I was experimenting with this. And you do have to click create. It's got to download it. Here's the chronological, and that just lists your last jobs from the last several years, usually starting now and going forward or backward. I think my resumes from the past, I have started from the past and worked my way forward. I don't know, that should make more sense, but it's up to you, whatever you want to do. The only problem I have found with using these templates is if you do want to change something, I think that is way too huge. I would never want to do that. I wouldn't necessarily want different colors. I think that's distracting. If you do want to change anything and you click on something, it clicks on the little blob for you. You can't highlight the whole line and type it the way you want to type it because it will all go green or it will all stay capital letters in the font it's already in, and you have to go back and tweak. So if you do want to change it, just click on each individual blob, job title, and then your company. And then when you click on the place to describe your responsibilities, it'll just blank out that one line. If you just start typing, it'll be however you want. I mean, it'll be this font, but it will be as long as you want it to be. If you try to insert bullets, sometimes it gets a little crazy. They really want you to stick to what they've already done. So you're just typing in information.
Mm-hmm.
So when I've had other patrons in the library and we've tried to use a template, maybe they've been to school for 10 years and they have 8 degrees and it just doesn't work here. So I would suggest that you just print out a few of these different templates. Sorry, and my computer is super slow today, so we're gonna have some lag time. Here we go. When you go in here, what's worked for us, me and the patron I was helping, we would just click on one of the really basic ones and they would print it out and then create their resume from that instead of trying to use a template. But it is a really good guide if you don't want to use the actual template itself. And really, I would say the more basic, the better. And it kind of will depend on where you're applying. If you are in the business world and you just happen to get laid off because of COVID-19 cutbacks, and you typically have a 3-page resume with all these details and descriptions of where you've been and you know, hostile takeovers you've done, you might want a specified resume with lots of detail. But if you're starting from scratch or you're starting over, I would say less is more. And something like this, you know, there's less crazy font and color. Type your name in, your job title. All this stuff will stay that size. They would just print something like this out and then kind of create a resume from scratch using a really plain template like this. Because if you are trying to use a template and you've got stuff on this side and stuff on that side, just a warning, what you're going to type in probably won't stay over here. I forgot you can't see my hands. It won't stay over here in this nice little blank. You know, your spacing will be off and everything. So I would suggest finding a template that you really like and just printing it off. I don't know what happened to my screen. Weirdness. I'm going out of Word and going back in. I've gotten stuck a few times trying to do things on my computer since I got here, so be aware, beware. Let me get the giant list again. Anyway, like I was saying, I would suggest just printing off a nice basic resume and starting from scratch and filling out your information that way, just creating a blank document. I do want to show you a functional resume though. They're kind of cool. Let's see. I found a really good one. There's one for a paralegal. Here's a functional. This one has a lot of, this focuses on skills more than times and schools and things like that. It's more specialized. Management, sales, communication, leadership, experience. It's really experience focused and not really education and past job focus. Just wants to know what you can do. So that is a focused resume. Some of them are really, really fancy, and they're usually more than one page, although I have heard that one page is best. They do have templates for cover letters. I might suggest, if you did get laid off due to COVID-19, that you did have a cover letter. I still don't know what this is about. This is crazy. It's like my computer got hung up and it just won't do anything else. There we go. If you did get laid off and you want to kind of explain that to your employer, you know, I'm not laying around watching TV, I actually got laid off because of this. And or if you have a gap in your employment just because your company closed down, I would suggest a cover letter just to explain yourself. They do have decent templates for these. Again, there's like weird font and colors and all that jazz. So if you don't want to mess with changing everything, which just from helping patrons takes so long, I would say print a good example off and just make one from scratch. Just my opinion based on my patron experience. I do suggest you keep your resume in several forms. You should have a paper copy. I would save one to a jump drive. Save it on your computer and email one to yourself as an attachment. If you do want to save it to a jump drive, I have one plugged in my machine right now. You would go up to File and Save As, and you'll get this little, what did I call it? A little browser window. Not a browser window. A little
menu.
Kind of. I had a really good word for it. Rats. You'll get this little menu, browsing window. No, browsing window. It's just, it shows every place you can save a document on your machine. And if you have to click on, like, say this PC or my computer, mine says this PC. If you click on that, you'll get another little window, and you should have a little space over here that says eDrive, or it might say the brand name of your jump drive. I know Kingston is a popular brand, and if that's what you're using, it will just say Kingston instead of USB or even eDrive. It just says Kingston. But look for the eDrive or the name of the brand name of your jump drive. Click on that and just save your document, and it'll be on your little jump drive. It looks like a James Bond device if you've never seen one. I keep forgetting you can't see me. You just see my screen. So you can save it that way. You can save it to your computer, which if you want to do that, again, it's File and Save As. This PC, I would just go to Documents. Sometimes it will say My Documents and hit Save. So it will be on your machine. It's on a jump drive. You've printed a paper copy, and then you can email this to yourself as an attachment. So I'm going to go through that. Let me open an email. There's our computer class email. Let's see. Oh my gosh, password. Wait for it. Okay. I had to rack my brain. So if you want to email something to yourself, just open your email, go to Compose or New Mail or whatever your new email says. It's something different on everyone. And you're going to say to yourself, so we are FPL Computer Boot Camp. Grr. It shows up as Roberta Fulbright. And then you'll go down here to something that looks like, typically it looks like a paperclip, or it might just say attach. Click on that and it will open up your little browsing window of, hey, this is where all my documents are. And we saved it multiple places. I'll go back to my documents. And actually, no, let me get my, yeah. And I think it said work it or Word. It's way down here. No, it was Word up. Click open or attach. It depends on your email. Sometimes it says open, sometimes it says attach. And it will look like, maybe if I can get this to move. There we go. Stop that, stop. It will show up somewhere. It will say the document name usually, or sometimes it will say the document name and a tiny paperclip next to it. I think Yahoo has a tiny paperclip. But in Word, it just looks like this. It's the file name, and it shows you that it's a Word document. So it's attached. Once you see that, you know it's attached, and you can send, and it will show up. in your email, like that. That's one of our old documents. But that's how you email to yourself. I know that's tricky sometimes, but you can email that to yourself as an attachment, so you always have your resume handy in several places. Bye-bye, Roberta. I'm going to sign you out. This is a little handout I made if anybody wants the handout after class. I know that when you are, if you're applying for a job online, and my coworker Renee and I went through this when we did our work at class, we filled out some job applications online. It was a little difficult. And first of all, it was kind of hard to find where you're supposed to apply. You usually need to look for something that says careers or jobs. And when you're in that application, it will ask you somewhere to submit your resume. And it could say, upload your resume, submit your resume here, and just have a little button that says browse. So depending on the application that you're in, it will tell you that it wants your resume. And you'll just browse your own computer to find your resume. And it's a lot like sending an attachment to yourself. So typically, like I said, there's a button that says upload resume or attach resume. And when you click on this, your little browsing window opens up. And I have a little screenshot. It'll look something like this, and you'll just have, that's going to be your browser window, and you'll have a little button that says open at the bottom. When you click on that open button, it will go into your online job application. And so when you get out of this and back into something else, when you get out of that and back into the application, you should see that it attached. And it usually has a little tiny file name that has your resume. It'll say, you know, Bob's resume, whatever you've named it. You should see that it uploaded. Sometimes it will say upload instead of attach. But like I said, it's always going to look the same when you hit upload or attach. You'll get the little, come here, you. You might see something like this. In the application, this is just part of an application that I did a screenshot of. Submit resume, and you have to fill out a teeny tiny form, but then you do hit browse, and your file will come up usually in this box or sometimes underneath, and then you hit submit, and then it will attach to your application. And again, it should show up. If it doesn't show up somehow, somewhere, it didn't attach, and you should probably do it again. But that's just a good example of what it looks like. One example from one application, but they all look roughly the same. I'm going to go back into the functional resume. You can edit in your resume if you need to. There are several ways. Again, if you need to change font or color, all that stuff is right up here, just like you're in a normal Word document. I think that's way too big. I would say 18 is sufficient. I think it was on 26. So you can change font. If you have misspelled something in your resume, like you've got one T in formatting, for example, again, see, it'll blank out your whole text. Nope, it auto-corrected. Don't auto-correct me. There we go. If you misspell something in your document typically, or if something is even grammatically incorrect, you'll get either a tiny squiggle Or you will get 2 lines underneath. And when I was working on the document for this class, I kept getting, let's see, I kept getting the little 2 blue lines. This is just the handout I was going to give to you guys. I would have something, yeah, right here, all the places, and whatever's wrong with that, I don't know, you can right click and it'll give you a good example. It wants me to put a comma afterward, but that doesn't make sense in this case. So you can just say ignore or don't change. Depending on your version of Word, it will say ignore or don't change. Or you also have, let me go back to my little documents are hiding down here. Oh, I don't want this one. Sorry, I have 1,000 windows open. Here we go. You can go up to review, and that's where your spell check lives, and your thesaurus. And now it says, on my version of Word, it says editor. Yours might say spelling and grammar, or it might say spell check. But if you hover your mouse over it, it explains exactly what it does. It checks for spelling, grammar, and writing suggestions. If you click on that, it should pick up on anything that's wrong. There's only one suggestion. And it's the formatting one, and they suggest 2 T's. I just click the correct one and it'll change it. That's all. And there were no grammar suggestions because, again, I just went from the template to make it quicker. But if you do need to check your spelling, check your grammar, just use this little spell check, or again, it might say editor, depending on your version of Word. Also, if you don't want to use the word good or fine 10,000 times, you can use a thesaurus. That comes in very handy for me because I tend to say very a lot. I tend to say good a lot. So let's just try that. There's so many different ways to say that something is good. You just highlight the word you want to change, click on thesaurus, and it will give you a giant list, or depending on your word, maybe a tinier list. Other things you can say besides good: decent, respectable, moral, upright. I would say moral and upright are not really good in this case. Good. They don't really fit in this case. So let's see. They also give you antonyms, but we want synonyms. And there's different types of different types of synonyms depending on the context. For me, good on a resume, I would want to say something like valuable or useful. If you're describing a project that you did or a skill that you have, you can click on their suggestion. I lost it. Where'd it go? If you want to change it, you can, I think you can double click on it. But it'll give you a lot of options. Depending on, you want to say, I'm going to try appreciated. If you do decide on your word, I'll go with valued. There should be, if you click on it, or sometimes you will have to double click, depending again on your computer, you'll get a little down arrow and you can insert it or copy it if you want to put it someplace else. That's just going to insert it wherever you highlighted a word. But if you want to copy it and put it somewhere else in your document, you can do that. You do want to use a thesaurus. Just go through your resume after you're done and just kind of make sure you haven't used the same word for everything or the same wording. Make sure that everything is spelled right. Capitalize names. If you have to have a certain word count, you can check it right there. Typically not, though. In an application, maybe. If you have to describe your duties, you might have a word count. But if you're wondering, all that editorial stuff is right here under the home button. Or I'm sorry, under the review button. And then the home button is where you can tinker around with your font and font size and all that stuff. You get rid of that. You can use the I don't know if Allword has a resume assistant. Close it. So you can edit in Word, and you can choose your resume you can create. You can choose one of the formatted ones. And again, like I said, you can try to change parts of it, but you might run into some issues with font size and color and just spacing of where they've put things. But I would say if you're trying to get started and you're kind of at sea, maybe you've had the same career for 20 years. Actually, I do know somebody who had the same career for 20 years and they did just get laid off. And so they have to start from scratch, and they did decide on a completely different career. So they had to do a whole different resume, and they did go to Word and kind of reinvented themselves on paper, so to speak. But I would suggest starting out with a template, even if you just use it as an example. And I know people would have questions and wonder how to do other things, depending on their version of Word, but it's just 2 people today. So can you guys think of any questions people might have?
I was going to type it into the chat box, but I'll go ahead and just say it. Possibly could ask about content. What should they put in certain areas? You know, how long is too long? Should they try to keep it 1 page? Should they have more of a bullet approach, or should they try to tell a narrative with their different sections? Different topics like that.
Again, that'll probably just depend on what kind of job you are looking for.
Sure.
If you're doing the functional resume, let me go back to the million billion resumes. Oh, shoot. If you're doing a functional resume, they're going to want probably things like projects that you've done. Or if you have, there is a resume here that's called a creative resume, and that is for a different line of work altogether. Some of the names of these are based on their appearance. So if don't let that confuse you, it's a little odd, but like here's a paralegal resume. I usually don't find one that's a definite job, so I'm going to open this up. And I'm going to assume that Vance has given everyone permission to look at his resume, or his example of a resume.
If that is his real name.
Yeah, if that is his real name. See, like this is mostly, you know, very detailed experience and certain skills because it's for a certain job. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I would recommend also, if you are applying for a specific job and you've read the job description and you know about the company and that kind of thing, that you even use some of the words that are from the job description. You know, if they want somebody who is, you know, detail oriented or can work autonomously. I mean, you try to use some of those words to connect your resume to that specific job application.
Mm-hmm. I think we will probably have a class on writing a resume, and we might have a guest speaker. I would suggest a guest speaker for that one. But this is just once you get into Word or you're trying to create a resume in Word, tools to use in Word.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, however you do your resume is totally going to depend on what job you're looking for. But I would say if you're starting out again, I would go for, I have heard people that have come here to talk before have said they just, you know, they do look at so many resumes, the shorter the better and the simpler the better.
Hmm.
So there is a basic resume template on here that is very, very, very basic, all black and white, one page, very short lines. That might be a little too basic, but I would just go with something, you know, I mean, here's a very basic functional resume and a very basic chronological one, not fancy. Make sure your name and I think this is excessive font size. Personally, your contact information needs to be very prominent. But everything else, I think, should just be, you know, plain text, clear, no weird fonts. Go with something like Times New Roman or Calibri, something that everybody can read clearly. No tiny font, at least 12 point, I would say 14. If somebody has to read a lot of resumes, or since you're submitting them online, yeah, probably 14.
Hmm.
They're going to get tired of squinting and getting dry eye looking at your resume. So that's really it as far as picking a resume out of Word. I mean, browse the templates, pick one that you like. I personally would print it and draw from it. You're welcome to use the template as a guide, but I would not type in the template because it does get complicated. Because your experience, again, might be all the way down to here. And you don't want to list your skills. You know, that doesn't appeal to you. You just want your experience and your education, and that's it. So you would kind of have to keep going back and reformatting and getting rid of bullets. And I would say just print one of these templates out because they're great guides, and just create your own. And that way you won't worry about messing it up and having to go back and recreate, and you just won't waste time and you won't get as frustrated.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Yes.
Thank you.
If we had more peeps, I could answer some more things. Let's see. I think that was really everything I wanted to hit hard. Typically, I will get interrupted a few times because my word doesn't look like their word, or
It's your word against theirs.
yes. These little screenshots, I really thought were helpful. Just showing people, you know, what some of these things are going to look like. You know, you're going to see that. And for people who haven't had to do this in years and years, this is going to be completely new territory. So the terminology will be different, and a lot of people only have a paper copy of their resume left. So they're going to have to recreate. And since a lot of places are not letting you scan right now, you can't scan and email it to yourself unless you do it on your phone, and that's a whole different class. I do that all the time. Happy to do that one too, but that's a very, you know, have to handle phone class. So maybe after COVID-19, we'll do that. But this is just the short and sweet on getting your resume, creating your resume in Word, and it's not, I don't have a lot of career advice. I only have looks advice on your resume. That's it.
But if they read any of the books that we have on resumes in the collection, most of those do have careers / best practice pointers
Funny you should say that because I did make a list.
Ah, there it is.
There's a
Good.
list of, I just pulled some of our more recent books on kind of business writing, grammar and punctuation and things like that in business writing, specifically when you're writing a resume or a cover letter, writing well for business success, things like that, business and professional writing. Those were our most recent. So I do have a list in case later somebody would want the notes from class. There's this, and there is also that Pathfinder. Let's see. Let's find it. Let's see. What did you call that, Renee? Do you remember?
It's the Get Hired ebooks.
Uh-huh. We do have a Pathfinder. And you can email the questions account and ask for any of these handouts, and we will send them to you. And the thing I printed for class, this is just kind of a guide that tells you exactly what I was telling you, only in simpler form. It tells you how to create a resume using a template. You can choose a template, different types of resumes. Stresses keeping your resume in several forms. And this explains everything I went through, how to save it, how to send it to yourself as an attachment, insert it in an online job application. So we do have this handout too, if anybody wants this. I mean, it's what I give to people when we have the class in person. So it's there. If anyone needs it, email the questions account and we will give it to you. Any documents you need, we can pass those on. So that was it, I guess. That's it. Please come to some more of our classes and hopefully we'll have more people and won't be put to sleep. Everybody go get a coffee. Thank you for
Hey,
coming.
thanks, Kelly. Bye.
Thank you, Kelly.
Bye.
Bye, Joel.
Bye.